Have you ever thought when you were reading a book, this sounds exactly like another book I've read or I've heard about? Hey friends, I'm Courtney and welcome to the Incessant Bookworm. If you haven't already done so, check out my writing vlog 002 where I basically say, well, that was a good effort, maybe next year. Also, if you haven't seen my Bookstagram or my Twitter accounts, head on over there because I post some extra bookish content that I don't post here. Also some more up-to-date and live content. So over on my blog and amongst a lot of my friends and my family, they always say, hey, I liked this book. Is there something else similar to it or something I would enjoy because I read this book? And of course, I love giving recommendations and suggestions and everything, but I thought, why not do a video of some of my favorite ones to pair with, or ones I've read and thought I would recommend this other book to somebody who's read this as well. So some of these books you might have seen before, others I might have talked about in different podcast episodes I've been on, or just in passing, but I thought I'd give you a good mix of some popular books that are out there, plus ones that may be on the backlist, or maybe are more independent or self-published. So the first book I have is if you have read either Harry Potter, any of the Harry Potter series, Fantastic Beasts, Sherlock, Holmes, or like supernatural elements, I would recommend Jackaby by William Ritter. So this was recommended to me by my brother. So he was up in Oregon on a trip for work and he went to a local bookstore and asked the bookstore owner, hey, like, what would you get somebody that liked these things and then basically has read everything? And the bookstore owner suggested this work, which is by a local Oregon author, where this follows Jackaby, but the narration is by this young woman who's his assistant, and this is kind of like a Sherlock Holmes meets supernatural mashup, where this could serve either young adult or new adult fiction genres. But basically, Jackaby is a genius and is able to solve different mysteries that have to do with the supernatural or different demons and monsters and things like that. So this, I believe, is a part of a series. Yes, so there's 4 books total in the series. I've only read the first one, but I'm itching to read what happens next with the dynamic duo here. All right, the next one, I feel a lot of things could go paired with this. So if you've read the ever famous Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, you would like Darcy's Story by Janet Aylmer. So yes, it's still in the same family as Pride and Prejudice. I know there's a lot of modern retellings or contemporary retellings nowadays, but this is in Darcy's point of view for the classic Pride and Prejudice. So of course this isn't written by Jane Austen. We don't know exactly what were Darcy's inner thoughts. We have like snippets of it in the original work, but this author who I've had a chance to interview, and I'll link that post down below in the description, she has a unique take on the story as like she has grown up and is a, I guess, Austenite or Austen fanatic in England. And she has created a beautiful story of what I think is pretty accurate of what Darcy's experience was, meeting Elizabeth, his relationship with Fitzwilliam, his sister, and then some other characters that we've come to either love or loathe in the story. Next up, apparently in my book club, we read a lot of World War II novels, and the first one that really kicked it off was Kristin Hanna's The Nightingale. So I have one here by a newer author. So this is The Night Portrait by Laura Morelli. And this goes back and forth between Leonardo da Vinci's time in 1492 and then World War II era in Germany. And we're seeing a lot of parallels between what Da Vinci was painting in a famous portrait and a art historian or art conservationist who's trying to protect all these paintings and works of art during World War II because a lot of places are getting destroyed. And I just love how the author bounces back and forth and makes those connections. So it alternates between time periods in the chapters, which I always love with the perspectives are changing back and forth because I think it keeps up the, not necessarily like the excitement, but the wanting to read on and figure out what happened to that character when you get back to that chapter. So kind of like in Kristin Hanna's The Nightingale, there are 2 different storylines going with the sisters, but it is kind of the same timeline or time frame. But there's still heartbreak, there's still loss, and experiences of like what war can do to a person mentally and physically. So I absolutely loved it. And as an art history major, like always a fan of reading about the history of art, but in a somewhat fictional but historical fictional kind of context. All right, this one, I have made this comparison so many times, and I feel like when I say it, people think it's a stretch. That is, if you like Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, pick up Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. So before you stop this video or try to fast forward, I have made this recommendation, like I said before, and people definitely see it. So yes, there's different timelines or different storylines. Game of Thrones is very violent and lots of story arcs going on, alternating between tons of characters, lots of, like I said, blood, gore, lot of things going on. But Outlander focuses on a couple of characters at a time, and like a lot of historical references are in here for Scotland and England during the 18th century. So I just love it. It's just amazing. It has, I mean, like, it's as thick as a Game of Thrones novel or series, and this is a long series as well, but it follows a woman who travels back in time by accident and finds herself in the middle of the war, basically, with Scotland and England, and is torn between two worlds in a sense, because she loved her life in England back in 1945, where the story takes place and where she's from, but when she's transported to 1745 or 1743, she falls in love with that time as well. So what does she do? How does she survive? Who knows? I know, but pick it up and figure it out yourself too. All right, so next up is a YA sci-fi fantasy. So if you liked Hunger Games, I would suggest A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. And this is I think this is a 2020 release, if I'm not mistaken. But this is, I can see a lot of parallels, but this has more sci-fi fantasy or high fantasy elements than Hunger Games. Not necessarily post-apocalyptic, but just another world as compared to Hunger Games. But this does have a competition of sort where people do end up dying, but that's not part of it. That's not the point of it. Folks just get eliminated usually, but people do die in this. And there is a need of survival for the two main characters, where they see themselves as enemies to begin with, or like neither of them can really win together. So what's kind of like the point, as like what we see with Peeta and Katniss in the Hunger Games, like they understand each other, but they can't really work together, or can they? So it kind of goes back and forth if you're familiar with the story. But it's the same here with the Song of Wraiths and Ruin, even though they're coming from different backgrounds and they're not competing in the same tournament, but overall, bigger picture, they're competing against each other, but they also fancy each other at the same time. So what does that mean for them? Also, sorry if I sound really nasally. I'm like sneezing in between scenes here or filming. I'm getting over, not sure what it is. I'm getting tested. Well, after you've seen this video, I would have already been tested, so hopefully it's not what we think, but just been feeling kind of crappy, so excuse me while I sound very nasally. This is not what my voice normally sounds like. All right, so I've mentioned several times that I like female travel memoir books, and of course I had to include those in here. So if you liked Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, I have two suggestions. One is We'll Always Have Paris by Emma Beddington, and then How Not to Travel the World by Lauren Juliff. So We'll Always Have Paris is a work where the main character, Emma, so she's traveling with her family to Paris and like thinks it's the dream. What everybody wants is to go to their dream city, has dreamt about it since she was a teenager, but when she gets there, it's not what she expected. So she's adapting, she's learning about the culture, the language, the customs, and trying to raise a family there as well. But there's some struggles there, not just with family, not nearby, but also like personally, trying to get jobs and everything like that. So it's a struggle for her. So how does she adapt to this city, this life that she thought she wanted? And what does she learn in the time that she's there? And then in How Not to Travel the World, this I think is me before I got comfortable traveling independently. So Lauren, she like buys like a one-way ticket. I think she starts in England or in Europe, and just puts herself out there outside her comfort zone to do like backpacking. So she doesn't do exactly what Elizabeth Gilbert does in Eat, Pray, Love, where she picks like 3 different locations to stay in for 4 months out of the year, but it's very similar, as in she's like trying to figure out who she is, trying to again put herself outside her comfort zone to grow and to learn, and she makes a lot of mistakes, so hence the title, How Not to Travel the World. But I just loved the bravery, the independence, the willingness. Like, she does have some moments of doubt, but she pushes through. She meets some great characters or great people along the way that help her figure out what, not necessarily she should be doing, but like what life is all about in the bigger sense of the word. So yeah, this is, I don't know, something that I feel like I've learned a lot from, of like how not to travel, but also just embracing that fear and that apprehension when trying to go somewhere new and that unknown. All right, so those are all the if you like this, read that recommendations I have this time. I kind of like doing these kind of videos because there's so many books that I have that are, like I mentioned, like self-published, not really well known, that I think we can make some comparisons to, even though I feel like I've mentioned this in videos in the past where I try not to be like, oh, that's like another version of this book that's so popular. But what I like when I make that comparison is that it's a different perspective, it's a different take on it, and it's still a chance to be creative and show a different perspective perhaps, or just to show the readers a different way to interpret like this bigger theme that we're so familiar with, or that we'd like to see in the books that we've read in the past. So I'd love to hear from you all what kind of other comparisons, if the books I've listed, you have other ones that might go well with them as well. Maybe you can consider them like book flights, I guess, as well. But yeah, if you have any suggestions of what books I should recommend for, if you like this, read that in later episodes or videos, let me know. I'll try to come up with some more. But yeah, I really enjoyed looking at my shelves and picking these out. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or comment down below. Like I said, anything that you would like to pair, or ones that you agree with or want to learn more about, I'll list the books that I have mentioned in the description box. Again, sorry I'm not feeling well. I'm trying to rise above it or think positively and distract myself from being sick. But yeah, this is actually helpful. This is giving me life, giving me some positivity, which I need this time in the year. Feel free to hit the subscribe button so you can see more videos like this in your feed. And if you want to support the vlog or blog further, please feel free to hit my wish list and my coffee links down in the description to support me in a different kind of way. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and happy reading.